And hello there. We are live. It appears we are live with the Idea Show. That's what we got. So, shall we?
Yes, we shall.
Welcome to the Idea Show. My name is Paul Verge.
And I'm Adam Dodds.
We really want to thank you for being a part of this inaugural episode and welcome you to our show. We're a weekly episodic that will mix discussion with audience participation with our growing audience. And we're here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. So if you really enjoy what you see today, join us every Wednesday, 6 p.m. And we look forward to chatting with you, our audience. So, what's the Idea Show? Simply, it's an open source idea channel that's going to help generate and bring to fruition many ideas with the help of an audience. And we'll have a live discussion that's driven by audience submissions and by our own ideas. And then we will entertain comments and questions and have the show evolve from there. So before I hand it off to Adam, we do have a quick disclaimer that any ideas that we're going to discuss herein are meant to become public domain, so that we don't believe in owning the ideas themselves, but we do believe in owning the time and energy that is put into the idea and then the subsequent results. So to that end, we want to have an open source discussion, a constructive exchange where we can be honest and be vulnerable and share between ourselves and our audience to get some of these ideas from the concept stage and into reality. So what are we going to do with this first episode?
Well, the idea of the first episode is super simple. It's to SWOT the show itself, to see whether the show has some feasibility to it and see whether people respond to it, how they respond to it, how it evolves over the course of a year. We're going to be shooting this, as Paul's mentioned, every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. So we, urge people to tune in and just listen. I mean, I can remember as far back when I was a kid, being part of brainstorming and idea generation was a really exciting thing for me. So, being a part of this show is exciting. It's new, it's fresh, it's never been done before, and I think more and more people need to think outside the box on a more regular basis, because it just enriches life in so many different ways. So, without going too far off topic, we want to check out what the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and threats in a show called The Idea Show, and get your response and see what we can come up with. So, yeah,
Let's SWOT this thing. All right. So just to describe what a SWOT is, it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat, SWOT. And so what you're trying to do is take any idea or concept and generate kind of an objective viewpoint of both the strengths and weaknesses, so the pros and cons, and then the opportunities within that and the threats that you need to identify. So by doing that, you're kind of comprehensively analyzing an idea or concept. And so before you embark on it, you're almost giving it like a pre-feasibility test.
right.
So we figured what better thing to SWOT first than our own show. So Adam's gonna stay seated while I write down our little SWOT chart.
Sure, yeah.
And we welcome you to the hottest set on earth.
Yeah. And again, don't be shy. Chime in whenever you feel like you've got some stuff to add. I'm clicking on the chat box right now, which enables us to be able to communicate.
So what you'll see that we've got here, we can angle this a bit.
Yep.
All right. SWOT. So this is strengths.
Oh, P.S. It's really, really hot in this room. It's
all the lights.
That time of the year.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. The computers.
Plus all the hard work we've been doing today.
Oh,
in
that
preparation for this show has definitely been a physical tool. So, in a sense, people would think that the natural opposition between these things would be strengths and weaknesses, and then opportunities and threats. But as we have been learning, the pair-offs actually go, what was it? Strengths versus strengths and threats, opportunities and weaknesses.
Yep.
So that you're trying to take a creative approach that doesn't just analyze these one at a time by themselves, but instead tries to look at each one in the context of the other ones.
Yep.
Okay. So to that end.
Yep. Just to add to that, there's also a part here where it's internal and then external.
Yes. So it's important to note that the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of any concept or idea also have, especially with companies, have a component of internal and external that can be applied to all four of these fields. All right. So let's look at a strength of the idea show. What do you think would be a possible strength that would be a good thing, something that would be strong about this show?
I think the aspect that a whole bunch of different entrepreneurs can get together and create a small community, for lack of a better term.
So crowdsourcing ideas, maybe?
Yeah, definitely. One of the strengths for people who have ideas themselves are that they can get their ideas manifested, brought into reality quicker with a group of people rather than just themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, yeah, a manifestation.
Fruition, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else just jump to mind? We're basically going to try and pump our minds here like a little exercise. And if we start to taper off with ideas, then we will jump to the next field in the SWOT analysis.
That's right.
So another strength of the idea show is it has potential reach at a really low cost of investment.
Yep.
So the risk versus reward in actually carrying out the show.
Low overhead is probably a strength, wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
Quick
You
turnaround.
could say it's tied. Yeah, there you go. Quick turnaround because the show is live.
Every Wednesday night at 6 p.m.
All right. So we've got 4 already. Let's think of a weakness.
The weakness would be the production value of what we're doing right now may not attract as many people.
Okay. So the production value, always a factor for how professional people think that something comes across as.
So we're sitting in a really small room right now, extremely warm, but the show must go on, and we need to explore what the idea show is all about.
So another potential weakness of the idea show is if we are, let's say we haven't eaten properly or something during the day,
yeah,
then we just have a shortage of ideas. Thus the content suffers. Shortage of inspiration.
Right.
Right? So the point is,
shortage of audience members.
There you go. What if we had no audience? Then what are we really doing this show for? It could be like those millions of tweets that exist in the Twitterverse that no one ever reads. Right? Yeah. So, and it's like anything. An idea exists in a bubble until it's written down, until it's made tangible by taking it from your idea, running it through your fingers or your mouth, and into some method of recording it, whether it's voice recording it, writing it down, videoing it. As soon as you do that, as soon as you externalize that idea from your mind to some other form,
yep,
you've taken the first step in making that a possible reality, in
yep,
taking a concept and taking the first step to making it tangible. Because as we know, millions of great ideas come and go every day. It's only the ones where constructive action is taken that blossom into something real.
Yeah, and then getting into the habit of doing that, right? So
yeah,
it's great that you write it down, but if you're not regularly writing stuff down, then you can't. I think it was you that had somebody's book that you read that they were saying if you write down ideas and then ideas.
Oh, James Altucher.
Right.
What was his book? Choose Yourself.
Right.
My partner actually introduced me to that book, and yeah, he talks about trying to train your brain to exercise it to become an idea machine. And the way you do that is you force yourself, at least over a 3-week period, to come up with 10 ideas every single day. And not just to come up with 10 ideas, but to actually write these ideas down.
Yep.
And they don't even have to be good ideas. They just have to be ideas, something new, something novel. And what you'll find is you might have no good ideas that day, but you might come up with some modification of one of the ideas, or even better, what starts to happen is your multitude of ideas start to have what James Altucher called idea sex, which is when your ideas start multiplying with each other and fusing into new kinds of ideas, and that's where the gold can be found a lot of times.
Yeah.
So you're training your brain, you're creating that idea machine through exercising it, and then you're able to come up with more and more creative solutions to problems.
Yeah.
So one of the opportunities in that vein then is to turn our brains into idea machines, right? Once we've done this, once we've done 10 episodes, we will have habitualized this process of going through it, different ideas, swatting things, discussing with our audience, and thus it's gonna kind of clear the blockages and
we're gonna have a huge opportunity to meet really cool, innovative entrepreneurs, people who are idea makers themselves, are idea machines themselves. I think there's a huge opportunity to be able to meet some really cool investors that are behind new and innovative ideas, and who understand that there's a lot of value to new ideas, especially when they've been properly executed or properly thought out.
Planning, execution, persistence. That's
basically the
pretty
recipe.
much the recipe.
Yeah.
So quite a lot of opportunities with the idea show, not just in the format, but with each new idea itself that comes along. We have the opportunity to develop these different things and build them with an open source kind of model.
Yep.
So we've got a couple here for strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities. I'm wondering if there's any threats that come to mind in terms of, let's say, people taking their idea and saying, oh, I didn't understand that it's public domain, so they try and make an IP claim based on something that's generated in the show. What else? There could be, we could try and bring an idea to fruition, and the idea is not successful, so it results in failure. Now, it's important to note that failure is one of those things that can bring people to their momentum to a halt. What Adam and I have found, and believe us, we've failed at lots of things, and each failure is really a learning opportunity. So you can say you have wins and losses, but every supposed loss, if it's really a learning opportunity, if it's really an opportunity to look at your mistakes in context and realize how you can apply the lessons that you learned from the mistakes going forward, and then you're able to actually mitigate more risk because you're more aware of the mistakes that can be made. So in a sense, failure creates an opportunity for more success because it's an opportunity to learn. Right?
Yeah.
So do you have any anecdotes about failure or any ideas of other threats that the idea show?
I guess a failure is only truly a failure if there isn't a learning experience attached to it. So, take the opportunity. If it stings, it's usually, hey, I'm going to put my attention to this and try to dissect a little bit more about why it stings and what I should do to avoid getting stung again.
Mm-hmm.
So I think failure is a part of success. If you don't fail enough times, you don't appreciate failure as much. So, it's just part of the recipe, and you have to go through it. you know, in investments, in the investment world, they say you invest in 9 different projects for every one that's a success, and the success has to outweigh all of the failures. So,
those successes, what we found with the things we've had success with, is that it was meticulous planning, constantly checking in, organization, and that absent those things, it was easy for things to fall through the cracks. And so the key, because you're only one person or we're only 2 people, what happens is you find, okay, if I can't do everything myself, then what if I can build a team who's able to, where you're able to delegate? And so then we found, and with several of the projects that we've worked on, that the key component was building the right team so that as you scaled up, then you were able to delegate to the right individuals, and then you're able to stay on top of forward planning.
right.
Because if you're too busy trying to survive with your ideas, your business, whatever it is that you're engaged in, then it's really hard for your mind to get out of the survival mode and get into thriving mode, where you can come up with a lot of creativity.
Yeah, and I think a failure, I guess, can also be looked at as fertile ground for creative thinking.
That is true. Yes.
So the act of creative thinking involves ideas, and it involves emotion and vulnerability, and so Paul and I have just been sort of watching a lot of other people's success and figuring out why it is they're successful, and what makes them successful, and how do they understand their own success versus what most people try to sell as success.
Yep.
So it's not as it appears, in a way where they have gone through an emotional experience. Out of that emotional experience, they've developed the idea or the force of manifestation, and then that's come to be, and they've capitalized on it in a way, shape, or form.
Yep.
Right. So, part of understanding if you've got an idea is like we had mentioned, to write it down and then see whether or not there's interest around the idea, and you have to vet it and be open to criticism in order to see whether the idea is going to fly, which is what we're doing today in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I think a healthy approach is to not invest too much of your identity with your idea. The more attached you are to the idea, if it doesn't take off or it ends up not being the best idea ever, if your identity is attached, your self-worth is attached to it, you're going to take it harder than if you're able to just kind of work the idea at arm's length and reserve a bit of your own self-esteem for not caring if the idea doesn't take off, and looking at potential failures as just potential learning opportunities. So in that way, because you won't have as much emotionally invested in your ideas, it actually opens up the channels to be able to come with more ideas more quickly, because you'll have less fear of judgment. And so the biggest thing is we're trying to create a forum where we can be open, honest, and vulnerable. And through that is where I think the best ideas come from, is where you have an open forum where people can argue. There's, conflict isn't always a bad thing if it's handled constructively. And, a really good idea should be able to be put through the paces and survive a little bit of debate or conflict.
Absolutely.
So, we also hope with this show to be able to provide that forum for healthy debates over ideas, what direction they should go, because ultimately, if we can start generating really good ideas, we would like to connect the idea makers, the innovators, with the investors and the resource people. And connecting those two together is going to be the path of least resistance, or the best way, not necessarily the easiest, but the simplest way to take some of these core ideas that we're going to develop and make them into reality. And it's only when they're brought into reality that you actually can measure the effect that these ideas have on people and on the population. So
yeah, I think to add to that, the idea show will be a dynamic where you can have a funnel where the first step is to bring the idea out, it gets debated. The second step is to put some resources and time behind the idea and really discover what it is and that makes it unique. And the uniqueness itself of the idea is what is going to determine whether or not people are interested in supporting the idea via crowdfunding, for example.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are steps that the idea show will help the idea or the idea maker, creator, that will facilitate it bringing into fruition, as we mentioned.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of different techniques, a lot of books that I've read, you've read, that we still need to read, but that we're familiar with a lot of the concepts from these. And so we're also hoping to bring forth sort of an education to people who might just want to watch instead of actively participate, if nothing else, then to see how the creative process can happen, and then how the idea manifestation into tangible reality, how that whole dynamic can happen. Because that's a learning process in and of itself.
Oh yeah.
And it can be very experimental and difficult for people because of the fear of making mistakes and being vulnerable, because a lot of times we can look at our failures as, you know, the end of whatever venture, and it can be daunting, right?
Yeah. Well, even just the case of Founder's Dilemma. I didn't even realize what Founder's Dilemma until I went through a situation that, you know, was very detrimental to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because a certain individual wouldn't let an idea grow, and there was a certain level of self-sabotage around the actions themselves on the perception he had with his own idea.
So like trying to micromanage too much.
Yeah,
so
there was
like,
a delusional perception on his own idea,
yeah,
which then created all of this quote unquote founder's dilemma.
Which is really, it's being in a bubble and not accepting constructive feedback.
That's right.
Because you're so sure. Like, the thing is that people spend a lot of time trying to be invulnerable and be in control of everything and eliminate risk and want 100% certainty. Maybe not 100%, but they want as much certainty as possible, because there's a level of comfort and safety in having those things. But as an entrepreneur, as someone who is trying to make inroads or strides into a new area, you got to accept that there's going to be a bunch of risk, a bunch of fear, and a bunch of uncertainty. And instead of clinging to the control over everything, which a single individual can't really, even in this day of age of high efficient productivity with technology, you can't do everything. The brain can't facilitate 100 different departments of something. So at some point, to cure Founder's Dilemma, you have to be willing to give up some level of control over your baby so that others can help you raise that project up to a level that it just can't get to by yourself, right? You can't pick a car up over your head by yourself, but with 20 really strong people working together, they can all pick up the car together. And that's just a silly analogy, but it's, you know, many hands makes light work. And a lot of times with some really good ideas, many hands make it possible instead of impossible.
That's right.
So that's to us the benefit of the crowdsourcing, if we want to call it crowdsource ideas. One of the big strengths, right? So one of the other opportunities is to connect, not just for us to connect with our audience and with innovators and investors, but for the audience themselves via the chat to be able to connect with each other. There's a lot of forums out there that people can connect through, whether it's Reddit or Facebook, but we want to give people the opportunity to connect live during the discussion. And I think this is one of the few kind of venues that allows that to happen on a wider scale with low overhead. So I guess one of the threats should be that YouTube goes down. Or starts charging for its live streaming service, because that would prevent us from being able to do this right now.
Yeah.
So that's just an example of a very basic SWOT. There are advanced SWOT techniques as well that apply the internal and external mechanisms to each of the ideas. I find that the internal-external they aren't vague, but they apply more to companies or certain ideas rather than others.
Yep.
Because sometimes the internal external doesn't quite apply. But they're really handy when it comes to a company trying to do like launch a product or come up with an innovative new service. That's where this really shines, especially in a larger group. So if you're working for a company and you're at your meetings, you're not doing constructive SWOT analysis, then like someone needs to really get on top of that.
Yeah, I think to add to that, you know, persistence is huge, and it's the part of the recipe to success, like we were discussing.
Yep.
So the idea show is going to be here for a while. We're going to be doing this, you know, every week at 6 Wednesday night, and you would only tell whether something works or not if you've done it for a while. So if people start chiming in, and you know, when the discussions start beginning, the ideas start flowing, and stuff starts to create, that's when the magic happens, and you only get that with persistence.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you quit too early, then you'll never know whether or not a good idea could have been generated on the show, and then, you know, success could have been shared and experienced. So for us, you know, we're going to be here for a while, and part of that is to be able to discuss on past episodes as well. So, you know, if you feel that you can add or contribute to an episode that was done before, then, you know, it's always a good thing, because you can check out some new stuff. And
yeah, each episode will live on, and there'll still always
That's right.
be people who can participate in the comments after an episode's aired.
Yeah.
But through many episodes, we're hoping to grow a bigger audience and get more participants, more entrepreneurs, more innovators, and that way we will be able to really engage the potential that we see in the idea show.
Yeah, so if you're a person that has ideas, that wakes up at 3 a.m. and writes stuff down, or if you're just a person that likes to share your ideas with other people, or you think that you have something of value that can be developed with a team of people, then, you know, write us at theideashow@gmail.com. And you know, if you're an investor or you like what you see on the show and an idea struck a chord with you, where you're like, wow, I just, you know, this is something that I can really get behind. Because a lot of times when you're investing with stuff, you're not necessarily believing in the stuff that you're investing, and more as we grow, we have to pick and choose where we want to invest our dollar, and there's more importance to that. So, you know, if you're believing in stuff and you're investing in the stuff that you believe in, then it's something that can inspire other people to do the same. And so if you feel that an idea struck a chord with you, shoot us an email at theideashow@gmail.com, and you know, get the ball rolling, right?
Yeah, that's where we're hoping to take submissions, both through the live chat, if something strikes a chord like instantly. Otherwise, for in between shows, essentially, if you want to let us know an idea that you'd like us to bring up, if you have comments that you'd like us to read on the air, if you have questions that you'd like us to answer on the air, or if you want to ask us what time at 6 p.m. on Wednesdays that we're doing the show, yeah, theideashow@gmail.com is the email address to send to us. We will likely have some kind of social media presence if we don't already, and so that will be another way to get a hold of us. But between now and next Wednesday's episode, we would really love to hear from you. Any ideas that you'd like to discuss, any comments, any questions about SWOTing or other aspects of breaking down ideas and putting them through their paces. What else? So yeah, we're at the halfway point. I think that has earned us a quick wipe.
Yeah, totally. It's super hot in here, but again, that is something that you have to persevere with. Minor obstacles to success, as I like to describe them.
Well, what do they say? Creativity is often not comfortable.
That's right.
It's not a comfortable process. Last time I checked, Adam and I we're males, as far as we know, and we're incapable of giving birth to an offspring, like a child, which is thought to be one of the most painful processes a person can go through. So our equivalent to that, metaphorically speaking, of course, is generating an idea, like pushing out not just the idea, but the whole project, right? The creative process from beginning to when you let a project escape or when it's released.
In a live, uncut, unedited way.
Yeah.
So there's,
So it can be uncomfortable.
You got to take the goods with the bads, kind of thing.
Yeah. So we're prepared to go through whatever pain and suffering that we need to get to that point where the ideas are flowing, where it's a regular process, and where the discomfort won't bother us, but instead will be an indicator that we're on the right track.
That's right.
So we'll just take a look and see if we've got anyone in the group chat who would like to say hello. All right. Anybody there? As an aside, I just want to wish everyone a happy July 1st. It is the hottest day of the year here in Greater Vancouver, Canada.
Yes, it is very much so.
And as you know, in Canada, we're not necessarily a tropical state. However, at this point today, it is certainly feeling like it. So, to take an aside from our idea show, SWOT, I was thinking about what ideas you come up with to beat the heat, right? So one of the things we noticed, because air conditioners obviously get really popular around this time,
yeah,
and you had mentioned that a lot of people will go to buy an air conditioner and they'll be sold out, and especially like on the hottest day of the year, it'd be like, what do you expect? Everybody wants an air conditioner or fan or something, so that's like the most popular item.
Yeah.
The only problem with air conditioners, well, other than being large and clunky, is that they draw so much power.
They do.
Right? So you can be trying, and in this day and age where we have electronics and computers and everything in almost every room, I just thought it would be comical to think of somebody trying to get their air conditioning just to stay on and having to plug it into different plugs and having the breaker trip each time.
Yeah. That's fun.
And so, it's like you're going through discomfort to get comfortable. So I guess, yeah, in a way, it's almost a metaphor for the creative process of ideas. That is one of the best sayings in terms of trying to determine a ratio for risk versus reward. Is the juice worth the squeeze? How strongly are you going to squeeze the lemon? If it ain't got much juice in it, then it's not worth your effort. A lot of times you don't know that there's not much juice until you make a little bit of effort.
Oh, tell me about it.
In a way, it's saying, know when something is worth your time and energy to invest in. And that I find is where I have the most conflict or arguments with people that are friends and relations of mine, is whenever you have a difference of opinion with your partners or with your team about where the time and energy should be placed, right? What if you don't all agree, right? If you're not all together, all in, then that's where resentment can grow. Or if somebody wants to contribute their ideas to an idea set and feel like they're not being heard or not being validated, then that can allow resentment to grow. And the resentment, of course, is the opposite of the vulnerability needed to allow new ideas to come forth. Because you're only going to be comfortable spouting out whatever comes to your mind as an idea if there aren't a bunch of people sitting there waiting to judge you and calling you an idiot or telling you your idea is terrible. So I think that's an art unto itself, like the art of delivering constructive feedback, where you can attack the idea or the elements surrounding the idea, the concept, rather than the person bringing it forth. Because you want, in the team, you want to encourage interpersonal, not conflict, interpersonal debate, I guess, like rigorous debate. So
you can tell whether somebody has that internal dialogue or not.
Yeah.
In my opinion, anyways. Like without judging, if that makes any sense, right? So it's more of a qualifying thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not judging you. I'm just not letting your decisions affect me any longer, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So you give somebody as much responsibility as you expect them to handle. And if you give any more than that, and then you get disappointed, then, that's sort of on you.
Yeah, and that's another aspect of not just writing down and making ideas tangible, but trying to see them through is, especially when working with partners, is you have to manage expectations. You have to set expectations appropriately.
Define them.
You have to define them, of course.
Yeah.
And then as you're going towards these timelines and these milestones, you have to manage expectations. And what that means is you're communicating, you're updating where you're at on a timeline so that the people who are expecting deliverables don't get blindsided if you're not able to meet those timelines, right? Because like Murphy's Law, you'll be, 2 weeks ahead on a project, and all of a sudden you hit this huge snag and you end up being a week behind. If you don't communicate with the people that you're working with and they don't know you're a week behind, that can affect their timelines, and there's dependability issues there, right? So we find that instead of trying to save face and fix the problem silently by yourself, that it's best to like try and get the team involved. And a lot of times it's circumstances beyond other people's control, and they actually appreciate the harder truth that at least you're trying to manage their expectations with the truth rather than trying to force yourself to meet their expectations using deception.
Yeah, not over-promising.
Yeah, that's another huge one.
Like qualifying people, you can also qualify ideas.
Yep.
So the same process can apply. What's the quickest to the money? What's the quickest to fruition? How do I do this? Do I do this bootstrap, or do I do this preparing for investors? There's all these different applications that do you come up with the idea, invest heavily, and then realize there's a competitor out there that basically
is doing the same thing for half the price,
right? Or do you take out as much market share as you can to be able to mitigate a lot of the risks with your idea? How much market space does that mean? So there's a lot to take into consideration with ideas, but I think, like people, if you have the right ideas, anything can happen. A lot of really cool stuff happens. And so what we're looking for is these really cool people, diamonds in the rough, for lack of a better term, that can come together and really make some great stuff happen. And crowdfunding is an amazing platform to get your stuff realized, but there's a lot of stuff that goes before crowdfunding. Yes, you can have a crowdfund with just a little camera, little Logitech camera,
yep,
and say, here, give me money. But the successful crowdfunding campaigns are the ones that have a plan, that have a SWOT, that have a
script, that think about what they want to give away in exchange, what the risk is to their investors, what the rewards are for their investors, what the timelines are on their deliverables. They take that stuff seriously, and then they commit to updates as well. That's how they manage expectations of their crowdfunders.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it makes a lot of sense, right? So, if you have an idea and you want to take it to the next step, be prepared to, invest a little bit more of yourself, of your time, because everybody knows if you have all the money in the world, the only thing that becomes important is your time and what you want to spend your time doing. And if you ask me, if I'm going to be spending my time on stuff, it's stuff that I want to do, that I enjoy doing and that I enjoy developing. And then, of course, it enriches your life again, right? So, for me, this is going to be really interesting to see how it evolves and to see how people get connected and to see how ideas will actually come and be developed right in front of your eyes, and to be able to have audience participation in that is huge. It's not really been done before, so it's...
Yeah, I've certainly not seen anything like this, like what we're trying to do from the beginning to the end of the creative process. There'll be, I guess, a lot of times where they'll already have the idea in place, and it'll be about like, how does this idea come to fruition? But we actually want to involve the creative process from the beginning, like pre-idea. How do you set the stage where you can actually just start brainstorming or generating ideas? And so we want to kind of be able to explain the set and setting needed to nurture the ability for those ideas to come forth, and then take you through a measured, logical, organized process that will take these ideas and put them through that whole process, so that at the very end, and it's a replicatable process. This is why we want to have multiple episodes. So from from its origin all the way to getting funding with Kickstarter to launching that idea. And next year we could be checking in on our first 1 or 2 or 3 ideas that have been developed, and so we can actually chart the progress. And again, you, our audience, will not only get to participate, but you'll get the benefit of learning from the mistakes and the successes that happen along the way as these ideas are nurtured and developed. So I think that's kind of like the value proposition for your time. You get back as much as you put in. So if you're participating by chatting with us, by contributing ideas, by contributing feedback, then that's going to reflect back to you from our energy and what we're able to deliver and show and say. And so hopefully not only does that help inspire us mutually, but bring a level of fulfillment, because as someone who's done a few projects, you've done a few projects, anyone who's in our audience who's completed a project, that's what makes it worth it. That's what makes it worth going through the painful birthing process of idea manifestation, is the fulfillment you get from looking back going, I made that, or we made that.
And I was a part of that.
Yeah, and no one can take away, credit's a whole other discussion, but no one can take away the energy that you've already put into something. You'll always have that in terms of the fulfillment that you can get through completing the creative process and restarting it somewhere else. So we have gone through the SWOTs, definitely one of the most important aspects of putting your ideas through the paces. If you're interested in connecting with us, you can go to theideashow@gmail.com, and of course Adam and I are here every Wednesday from 6 p.m. till 7 p.m. It's a 1-hour show. Not a huge investment of your time, but plenty of opportunity for us to have a logical, rational discussion about how to make these ideas come forth and how to take them to fruition. Anything you want to add?
So yeah, it's going to happen every week. So there's a week to plan. So if you have an idea that pops into your head Tuesday night, shoot us an email, because we're going to read them all the way up until the day. And then of course we pick the ones that we think can have a higher chance of coming to fruition
for that week. Like,
yeah,
you might, of course, don't fear that if your submission doesn't get picked the week that you submit it.
That's right.
We might get to it like a week or 2 later. So
yeah,
we're definitely going to read and look at every single submission that comes in, and we're just going to rank it and prioritize it based on basically feasibility.
Yeah. And then of course that process gets developed by having the idea on the show. We pitch it for you on the show, and then audience participation, discussion around some of the analysis stages. Again, we jump into strategies after discussing the analysis, and then of course possible execution plans around that idea. So we might have a few ideas per show, and then as that develops, again, this show is going to be based on audience participation, and it'll grow with audience participation. So, this show might be completely different in 6 months than it is today, or it could be completely different by next episode.
Yep.
We don't know. Somebody may watch this show, a week later, and have a really good idea for the show. So there's a lot to take into consideration, but at the same time, there's room for everybody on the show in terms of what level of participation you want to have. Whether you're a guy with an idea, or you're a guy with the money, or you're an audience member that would like to refine the idea. So,
or just learn about the process in general, so you can go out and take your ideas and bring them to fruition yourself.
That's right. Yeah.
The one thing is, as much as we want to mix it up with the innovators and the entrepreneurs and the investors, more than anything, we just want good ideas to be in the world.
Yeah.
Because there is a shortage of good ideas to solve problems. We got an abundance of problems. We got an abundance of creativity and genius out there. We also have an abundance of distraction and all these other things. So trying to attract and unite that creative spark and concentrate it and put it through a process that people can actually witness and then go, oh, okay, that's the process from A to Z. I can replicate that.
Yeah.
If we don't get to be a part of your awesome idea, but you go out and take what you've learned from our show and go and create something amazing with it, like that is, to me, that's a rewarding experience. everybody wants to make money with their idea, of course, and we want to help people connect their ideas with money so that everyone benefits, of course. But that being said, if any aspect of the idea show and what you get out of it is able to help you take your idea and bring it to fruition, or take your already existing idea and improve it to bring it more success, we want to hear about that. We want to hear your success stories. We want to hear your idea stories, because our egos aren't big enough that we demand to be in your life. We just want to know that we're helping inspire people, because that helps inspire us.
And we can share it on the show. People can learn from success stories. People love success stories, but I think there's not enough of it these days.
And even failure stories. You know what? Like, if you've had a walking failure that you want to share, but you had some lesson that you learned from it, that can inspire other ideas. Or you never know when another audience member might say, oh my God, I went through that same thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't think of this aspect or that aspect. So, risk mitigation and mistake prevention through the learning of, through sharing of other people's experiences, that's a currency in and of itself. Because how much time and money can you save by not having to make the same mistakes as people who come before you, right? Especially if they're taking the time to air their mistakes or their failures, which turns them into a positive, because then they've learned from it, you're learning from it, and everybody moves forward a little more prepared. All right, so we're coming into kind of the home stretch, the final quarter of our first inaugural episode of the Idea Show.
Yep.
We've kind of had a loose format for this inaugural episode because we wanted to have some level of preparation. It's not just on a whim, but we also want to keep it open in case we had several audience members show up and have room to discuss just things that are on our minds in terms of ideas about ideas. Does that make sense?
It's a very fractal approach.
So I wanted to ask you a question, Adam. What's a good source to you of discovering new ideas or new perspectives on ideas? Because we were watching a couple of videos in the last week. So TED, Technology, Education, Development.
Really cool.
I find even better than the TED Talks a lot of times is the TEDx Talks, because they tend to be, even though they're smaller audience and not as like pro looking, they're sort of like user submitted from different TEDx Talks. A lot of times the subject matter ends up being more interesting because it's almost a little more out there. So, as much as I would enjoy watching a regular TED Talk of like Brene Brown or Monica Lewinsky or something, there's so many great TEDx Talks talking about the creative process. What was the one we watched with, what's his name?
Norman
Keefe?
Neef?
Norman Neef?
Seef.
Yeah, I think it was Norman Seef. Seeff.
Forgive us, Norman.
For butchering your name. But his talk, he's a photographer who's been taking pictures since at least the 70s.
Really?
And what was inspiring to us was that he's not only interested in pursuing the creative process himself, but part of his like seduction method with the artists that he's photographing is to get them to discuss their creative process. So whether it's like Ray Charles or Alicia Keys or Herbie Hancock, those are just examples that they show in the video. There's tons of artists that he's shot. He shot SCTV, the whole cast. He interviews them while he's photographing, photographing them. And it's interesting to hear these different artists talk about their creative process, because it's never identical really to anyone else.
And it's vulnerable.
Very vulnerable.
So they develop this vulnerability with him, and he captures that vulnerability in time. And a lot of his work is around, and many people see it but don't necessarily associate it with him. But he's done some pretty remarkable work out there. But I love the interview. It really resonated.
The TED Talk.
Yeah.
It's
just, I don't know. It's
the 7 steps of the creative process, right?
Yeah.
So once and we're going to talk about this in our next episode, unless we get around to talking about it in this episode, I could bring it up. But go ahead.
He talks about the creative process and when people had realized that they had something really good. And a lot of the times it's at night. A lot of the times it's just in the middle of the night where somebody will just wake up and have this really emotional, almost a negative emotion towards something like a problem. And then right suddenly after, they'll have this really cool, creative perspective on the matter, and it'll create this opportunity, and then of course the idea comes out of the opportunity. But
so yeah, as Adam was kind of paraphrasing the 7 steps of the creative process, he essentially Norman Seeff lists it as, hearing the call, which is the spark, the emergence of this dream that you might have of something, some idea, some concept. Could be a novel, could be an invention, could be a breakfast cereal, who knows. Then the initial thing that comes after you've come up with this idea is the fear and resistance that's internal. Sometimes external, but mostly in reality it's internal. It's self-judgment. It's like, nobody's going to like my idea, they're going to think it's the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah.
And so every day we stop ourselves from creatively expressing ourselves thanks to the fear of judgmentalism. So once you get through that stage, though, you kind of exhaust the fear of judgment, and you get to a resolution of the fear and the resistance. So you're able to kind of get past that and be like, who cares, or I'm not going to let it stop me. You get this extra kind of resolve, and that becomes your turning point, right? That's stage 4, the turning point.
Yeah.
And once you've gone through that turning point, then you're creatively open and you're able to access those inner resources. Yeah. And that's when the creativity starts flowing. That's when you're typing for 3 hours and you don't even realize, you're like, 5 minutes just went by. What, 3 hours? Because you're in that zone. When you're in the creative zone, time does not exist to you. You're right. Too busy focusing on the creation, on bringing the vision out of your head and into reality. And so once you have gone through that creative process and from your head down to your fingers or however, that's the manifestation of the idea into reality. And that final stage of manifestation, the end thing is you get to sit back and appreciate and have the fulfillment that you've essentially triumphed. Your dream has triumphed. It's emerged. It's gone through the paces. You've come through it, and at the end, you have this thing, this film or book or invention that has the potential to affect people, right? Whatever. This is the beauty of ideas and creations, is that somebody comes up with a dry erase marker. It's just a tool, and it depends on what you do with it. But we could write down 100 million ideas, or we could draw a picture, we could do all these things. Any tool that allows you to express yourself, especially if you understand that creative process and you let it happen, right? You don't, by knowing that it exists, you don't get stuck in any one particular place, and it allows it to flow like a circle and repeat, right? So yeah, I think it's definitely worth people's time, especially if they have any creative blocks, or they feel like they're not able to even discover that passion. Like that seems to be that kind of the inner fire that inspires creativity. Is you have to find whatever you're passionate about. And this is one of the things I learned from Adam, is passion drives your purpose, right? When you wake up in the morning, if you don't feel like you have a purpose or a goal, and I've talked with other people about this recently, and they've kind of stressed how important it is to make these goals, because especially with an idea, you can take the idea and drive a few inches at a time, and you can't see anything as it's coming, or you can visualize, what's the end of my destination? What does this idea look like when it's complete? And then you reverse engineer the steps back to where you're at currently. Sure. If you don't do that, you're basically flying blind or driving with the headlights turned off. And planning ahead in terms of visualizing what the goal or the destination is, helps you plan the route more accurately, so that you don't have as many pitfalls or opportunities for mistakes. So I think that's really important, because if you don't do that, then it's really easy to get off the rails, get lost, lose your bearings, and lose control of the manifestation of that idea.
Yeah, you set a flag in the sand, and you're going towards the flag.
That's been the major difference between the things I've done that were success and things that were failure, is that the planning and the foresight, because they say it's 80% preparation and only 20% execution. So if you're not properly prepared, you might luck out and execute it anyway, right? But if you want to ensure something's successful, you gotta prep the heck out of it. And that requires a lot of time and energy. And a lot of times you almost feel like, is this redundant? Am I doing too much? Am I overthinking it, overanalyzing it? And as much as you can overthink, overanalyze it, that's where you want to get other people involved, because any idea is thought up in a bubble. And as soon as you get other people to criticize it or give you feedback, it's no longer a bubble. It's not an echo chamber. You can actually refine something properly because you actually know you have a bit more of an objective perspective.
That's right.
So what we're hoping for next week's episode is that that the heat will have tapered off a bit. That would be great. Currently, we have about an inch of water on the floor right now from the sweat that Adam and I have been producing. But you know what? You can't come up with too many good ideas without a little sweat and tears.
Yeah.
No blood. We don't need blood.
No.
But sweat and tears, yeah. I mean, that is the byproduct of extraneous efforts. So we look forward to your participation, your submissions, your comments, your feedback, your critical feedback,
your engagement,
and definitely your engagement. And we look forward to interacting with you, future audience members, current audience members. And the Idea Show will be returning back to you next Wednesday at 6 p.m. till 7 p.m. Got a couple minutes here left. Is there anything you wanted to add in terms of?
Yeah, make sure you share the information. If you see that the information has given you a different perspective on things, or if you've learned a few things, give it to somebody who you think may benefit from it, because there's so many blind spots. I think if you're going to get into business, or if you're going to start developing an idea, that you really do have to compress time and learn from other people's mistakes. So, you know, if you feel that somebody's got ideas and is constantly thinking about ideas who can benefit from this information, then just share that with them, and it can change their lives. It can change people's lives. And we hope that this is what the Idea Show is going to be all about, helping people enrich their lives and bringing quality content to people. So, yeah,
some of the, do you want to talk about any of the different subject matter, or is that a bit redundant?
No, I mean, it's stuff, you know, like if you're thinking about businesses that are around animals or art or
comics.
Yeah, community stuff, dance, design, education, environment.
Yep. If you're interested in fashion or film, maybe food, we're interested in gaming even, health, music.
Photography, politics, sports.
Even technology and theater, web video itself, and writing, if you're interested in just creating like on that level.
Yeah, we encourage you to write in at theideashow@gmail.com and share some of your ideas and see where we can all take it. So,
yeah. And so on that note, I think we'll come in at 58 minutes on this episode, and we look forward to seeing you on episode 2 of The Idea Show. Bye for now. Oh, I'm Paul Verge, and this is
Adam Dodds.
Bye for now.
See ya. I think it's still live.
How do we shut her down?